Morning, Andreas, or good afternoon over there.
Hello.
Um,
Yeah, afternoon.
gathering up today to
Yes.
speak about our new course offering with the School of Mythopoetics called "The Sun and the North Star." Um, and this offering that we're kind of birthing is a deepening and a continuing of this 6 month long container we've been in the tending the well of memory, which has been so deep, to use a trite way to talk about it, but has been a really deep drink from what's possible when you turn towards magic and myth and story, and the earth with commitment. And we're really envisioning this sun and the North Star as a uh, next step into that kind of territory, and also an invitation to newcomers who have never studied with us before, who are curious about what it might mean to enact the worlds of stories in our lives as practices of ceremony and magic, and to see what's possible when you live the story. Um, we we've been talking, Andreas, about what the sort of like pillars of our understanding about this work are, about why it's important to reconnect with place and why it's important to reconnect with magic. And I'm curious, magic and story, and I'm curious, um, as we sit here now, why you think a course like this is important in this time.
Yeah, I think when we when we did our 6 month course, one of the issues often is what when the threads end and when you all everyone dissipates, it felt very much that hang on, maybe we need to have a container to come back to once a month. That's how it felt for me, to reinvigorate, to hydrate something that people aren't just left to their own devices, but they can come together for once a month and pursue this idea of relational activities, with landscape, with ceremony, with practices such as the cosmic intelligences of runes, and all these big things that we raised. So I feel the next step now is to, yeah, bring in the practices more in high definition and allow them to guide us, to what's happening next. Lead from the back,
Mm.
allow other voices to come in, and then have a really a good conversation on how this can benefit people that join and also the communities where they live.
Hmm. Yeah, I love this idea, right, of like the sort of hearth fire that we're tending, which we realized we didn't want it to go out because there's been so much beauty generated around it, and tending this hearth fire, and then realizing that actually so much of the work is taking the heat from that fire and bringing it to the wider communities, and so figuring out ways to support um, those who are studying with us to call together community and to make ceremony of Thanksgiving together, or to call on the powers in the stories when it's needed for life transitions, or just a little bit more resource in these kinds of times of trouble, and being able to give people a really um, deeply useful tool bag, magic bag to pull from, to call people together, whether that's these practices of counsel that we've been engaging with in the course, or that is the processes that come from the sagas, like the bloat and the utiseta, and and Seder, and these kinds of ways to lean on when we want to call people together, um, and and then to like trust, to like give people the trust, like you can use these traditions to make community. You have, and it's right at your fingertips, and just giving that little bit of wind in the wings to make that possible.
I think that's a
um,
really important point you just made there, the whole idea of trust, because we live in a place where we are sometimes guarded against ourselves when it comes to spiritual practices. We have a very limited view, and I've always felt myself that working with this content is incredibly how vast it becomes very quickly, and how many things you can do with it. Like the rituals can be there from the Brother Grimm stories or from the sagas, so you can recreate a lot of the rituals, the blots, the ceremonies, the Utasita practices, and suddenly you have. Plus, then you have the also. Let's not forget, you also have the arts of the magical side, which is the dragon, the Uren styles, for example, of the 11th century. You know how they used to write runes on the on the dragon bodies, and all of those things. I mean, so much that it's there to share and to work with, and to really bring forth a very strong, robust tradition in which one can stand on, a cosmology also in which one can stand on, and grow from that. I think that once you start the process that we've done, I've noticed in the beginning you think, is there enough source material? Is there enough? Do we have? Is there enough out there, or do we need to run some other culture? Or, what's going on? But suddenly, especially with tending the well of memory, you recognize there is a lot of source material. In fact, there's millions of things that you can create. So that's very exciting, because it's as if we can see a burgeoning face of a wisdom tradition. It's kind of there, and that's very encouraging.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really encouraging. That was one of the main things that I found in the course too, was any voice in me that says there's not something in this tradition was just confronted again and again of like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's there. We just have to learn how to read, and we have to learn how to intuit and feel and extrapolate and walk into the stories.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the main um, things that we've been talking about welcoming people into is this process of finding the stories that are calling them to walk into them, and then to be guided with the tools of, okay, so if you want to walk into a story, here's how you do it. Here's what you're searching for. Here's the password on the door at the mines in Moria, and now you can get in.
Mhm.
And now you're
Yeah.
in there, and how are you going to move around? And what are you looking for to bring back, so that your vision of the story can manifest as art, or as practice, or as ceremony, or as a screenplay. But to then kind of make our research into storytelling and into the story tradition actually a magical practice, a sacred practice
And a
of
culture making practice. I mean,
exactly.
culture never stops being made. That's culture wasn't just, it doesn't, culture is a continuous process.
Hmm.
And I believe that the moment you step in to recreate, or let's say do a ritual from a Brother Grimm story, let's say, right? You are bringing culture into you creating new, new culture from an old compost,
Hmm.
and or new seeds growing from an old compost. And I have been surprised how beautiful that practice have how much it's flowered. When you start off with something like this, there's always these little ideas, because what you don't want to create a kind of a reenactment. That's not what we're doing. But all we're doing is we're just going to go into the sources, see what exists there, look into the stories, see feel and explore the practices, and whilst doing it, share the experiences from that.
Hmm.
And the stories that have come to me from people doing utasitas or doing blots have been extraordinary stories. So I think we need to have a once a month hearth fire around the world that we did. and I think it's necessary to have one and to support people who want to be on this journey with us.
Hmm. Mm.
So yeah, I think that's it. Feels that the star, the North Star, is the moral compass, the ethical compass, what points towards a place which is to benefit the community, to follow the good heart.
Hmm.
And the sun, well, we can discover this in the course, but the sun really is that illuminating, the Solihull rune, the illuminating light that can be glimpsed.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and the constellator, the great constellator that uses that light to make worlds.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
a great rune. I love the runes. Solihull. It's a fantastic.
mhm.
So yeah, we have a lot to work with, and so there's plenty of things that we're going to do. Like we've just spoken before the recording, we said that we want to sing the runes this time, learn to sing them powerfully to in order for that to come into ritual again, and also to explore what choreographies we can do with ceremonies and rituals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to follow the intuition of the unbidden choreography and image that might arise when working with these inherently visionary practices. Of working, learning how to read the runes and learning how to uh, allow them to evoke animate force from the deep places, and then to like trust those and ride them to where they want to go. Seems like the deepening of the practice of like learning how to have vision, but then learning how vision becomes manifest seems like something that we are calling forward and are offering in this course, is to like really uh, offer people the space where they can test out those possibilities.
And
Yeah.
being when they're sung in this way, they're just like they have a similar root system to the mantras of the East, or
Mm-hmm.
to the plant songs of the West. Suddenly we can sing runes from flowers to trees to mountains, and we can start having that rich chanting expression, which is for so many has been completely lost, but obviously it exists in many other cultures. So it's like a crystal crown that's been smashed, and we're gathering the pieces
Mm-hmm.
and we're putting it together, and we're seeing some beautiful, beautiful creations. And I love the fact that there are people interested in pursuing this. And I think it is important because it is ancestral. So
Mm-hmm.
there is something there that we need to investigate. And also it's ancestral to a point where, in my mind, we can find the trust, the loving kindness, the heartfelt, the good heart. It's a cosmology that, for many, when they navigate through it, it feels like home for many.
Learning to stand on that ground, that ancestral soil, internally um, and and externally, and to then pull up um, nutrients from the traditions and from the earth that allow the gifts that we're giving our community through ceremony and practice to be sourced from the ancestral gifts that we're receiving um, through story and our research and our deepening connections to earth,
Yeah.
and allowing that to be a sort of deepening of that which we're called to offer to the world. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that strikes me is that when people come to it as a homecoming, one of the questions, why our ancestors, not something we should fear. The whole fear idea, I'm very suspicious of this idea of fearing our own ancestry, or our ancient gods, things like this. What excites me is when excuse me. What excites me is when you look upon this as possibility for new growth and new understanding, which is particularly to the tradition. So soul perception is something that I find fascinating in the contents that we're going to work with, which is the different parts of the soul, different parts of the self. And also I love to bring forth more in this course. The sun and the North Star is more also finding the root into the divine origin of plants and trees, or into their spiritual stories, and that we can also find in the sources. For example, the primrose, used to be a key, or is a key that grows or is located in the Freya's tiara, and she will take the primrose and she will then unlock the gates of spring. And that's a very short little story, but you can really grow that, and that could be the first point in which you create a relationship to the primrose, for example. And I would love to do that with many, many other plants and trees and landscapes, to bring them back to that realm, to that story realm again.
Yes,
With the
beautiful.
chanting of the runes, with the chanting of, that becomes very full of richness.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a deeply nutritious brew of
Yeah.
things that we're calling in. And I think that the benefit of this new structure that we are calling in is that we have the time, because it is envisioned as a monthly meetup, um, as long as the sun is rising and setting, for as long as people want to come and join us around the fire. To turn this shift the perspective from like a course with a beginning to end to uh, a companion to for our livingness, for as long as people are drawing nutrition from being together and wanting to deepen. And I think that shifting to that structure is going to allow us to dance a little bit more, instead of sort of march towards the end of
Yeah, and
something.
settle in.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Settle
settle
in
in
and
some of
see.
the question, some of the things, work with the clay,
Hmm.
and find people will find their own voices through this content
Hmm.
for sure. I mean, I've had some who've made beautiful Selkie related rituals from Selkie stories in Scotland and places, or other rituals from the Brother Grimm's version, or even the sagas and the Eddas. And all of this really, really needs a place where you can come and show the work, learn, explore, share, and be part of this burgeoning wisdom practice. And who knows where it leads. I think, as long as people feel expansive when they work with this, they feel joyful, expansive, they trust the material, they trust the way in which we have structured it. I think then it could really have a long longevity. It can carry on.
Hmm.
That's what I'm really hoping, that it's we can sow some seeds from this.
Hmm. Yeah, I hoping for that too, and I see them burgeoning already
Yeah.
in the in what we've been receiving, and what the ceremonies and visions that people are already manifesting from the first arc of what we've been doing, which gives me great hope for the depth and possibility of this new cycle that we're entering.
The sun and the North Star.
Hmm.
It's a positive image. These two rising heavenly bodies.
Hmm. Hmm. A perfect cosmological tension to the deep well of memory that
Yeah.
we've been tending for the last 6 months.
They carry such a powerful current. The
Mhm.
sun, of course, with all the processions that we rotates, and well, the North Star with the way it rotates, and then the sun with the equinoxes and all of these solstices. Yeah, it's there's a current.
Mhm.
Let's follow the current and see where it leads.
Yes. May we ride it well.
Yeah.